Alright, here's a little bit of a tutorial to help you with the Game of Life assignment. We'll start by copying all of this template code I made for you into a new NetBeans project. So you can copy that. Let's make a new project. And let's just remove all that, paste the stuff I copied. And I've got to fix some of these things now because I have a different name. Okay, so the four parts that we have to add code to are these last four functions. And you'll notice this one has an error because it says it's supposed to return an integer. Let's just return -1 for now. We can fix that later. But let's do the load file function first. So the idea here is we want to be able to read all of the data from a file into our 2D array called grid. So to do that, first we need to have a file and we need to know what to look for inside that file. So maybe let's start by adding the file. I believe if we say new empty file, that's one way to do it. Or you might have to click files and then go inside. And then go inside. Yeah, right click here and say new empty file. You might have to go inside other and then scroll down to other. And then right here you should see empty file. Okay. So I'm going to save this file as griddata.txt. Okay. So it'll put that file directly in the same folder as my project files. Let's just copy some data into that file. So why don't we start with this one, the glider. We can paste that in here. There we go. Save it. And then we're trying to read zeros and ones line by line. And I think we can start by trying to open the file. So let's say create a scanner. We'll call it file reader equals new scanner. But this isn't like the other scanners we've made where usually we read through the keyboard. And usually we have a system.in there, right? Well, this time we want to put a file there. So maybe first we should actually create the file. So maybe I'll just call it F. I'll say it's a new file with the file name griddata.txt. Okay. And then we can pass the F parameter in those parentheses. Okay. All right. Now we have to handle the possible case where it doesn't find the file, which is a file not found exception. So let's just click this light bulb and surround the statement with a try catch. So now we've got two cases here. We've got the case where it successfully opens the file, it finds it and opens it, and then we've got what happens when it doesn't find it. Now you can change this to just be a simple output statement, like that, and then EX is all of the information about the error. So that's a little bit shorter of a line of code. And if you want, you can change around some of the formatting. Alright, and now inside of the try block, this is where we put the success code. So where it successfully opens the file, now we can start reading through it line by line. So let's set up the while loop to do that. We can say while file reader dot has next line, and then store a reference to each line. File reader dot next line. Okay. Now we need to have a way to read through each column of each line. So let's say for int I equals 0 while I is less than line dot length I plus plus. And then inside here we can grab the current character. Oops, I need to put parentheses after that. So we can grab the current character found at position I in this current line. So let's say char for character, c equals line dot char at I. Okay, and what are we going to do with c, the current character we're looking at? Well, we need to put it inside of our grid. Remember, we have a grid, a two-dimensional array here called grid. And in order to do that, we actually have to know what row we're on. So we're reading lines line by line, but we didn't keep track of which line we're on. So we got to add something up there for that. We can say int current line equals 0. And then maybe as soon as we've read every character up the line, we can increase it. So we can say, after that inner for loop, current line plus plus. Perfect. So now, current line is going to equal whatever current row we're on, and c is going to equal the value at whatever I column we're at. So let's just put c in the position inside the grid at current line I. So grid current line I equals c. There we go. And that should be all we need for the load file function. Okay, let's do the display grid function now so we can test and see if our load file function even works. So display grid is also called by the main function. If you notice, the main function I failed to mention earlier, it runs the load file function, and then it runs the display grid function, and then the start game function uses display grid again and again every 300 milliseconds. So let's just implement everything we need for display grid. So all it says is to go over all the cells in the grid and use some character to represent if it's alive and another character to represent if it's dead. Alright, let's start with a for loop where we just go over all the rows of the grid. For int row equals 0, while row is less than grid.length, and row increases. And then inside there we need to go over all the columns of the row. So we can say for int col, while col is, or equals 0, sorry, while col is less than grid at position row dot length, sorry. And then col plus plus. Okay, so that should help us go over all the individual cells of the grid, or at least as an iterator going over each row and another iterator going over each column of each row. So we can easily display some things now. Let's just say, get the current character we're looking at, so char current char, or maybe just c is fine, equals whatever we find in grid at spot row col. And then we can say if c is a 0, it's dead, right? So we can just output nothing. We'll just do a space. So I guess it's not nothing. There really is a space character there. Make sure to output that. And then if it's alive, we output a different character, such as asterisk. Okay, and then after the row is done, we can output an empty line. All right, let's test this. See if it finds the file. Yeah, it looks like it does. And that was the shape. It's printing it again and again. Let me scroll down so you can see. Maybe you can notice the scroll bar is kind of flickering. It's because it's reprinting this every 300 milliseconds. So if this, as soon as we get these other two functions written, then we should see this gliding down to the bottom right. But it's not changing yet because we don't have the perform life cycle working or the get num live neighbors function working.